Welcome to the 700 Club. As Russia continues its onslaught in Ukraine, fears are growing that the Baltics could be the next in Putin's crosshairs. One nation warns that if Russia attacks, its capital would be wiped off the map.
Well, officials in 3 Baltic countries are appealing for more military might to fend off mounting aggression. George Thomas brings us the story from Tallinn, Estonia.
NATO's eastern flank is home to Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. Like Ukraine, all 3 share borders with Russia.
In our corner of the world, one should always be aware of the threats coming from Russia.
Kaimo Kusk, Estonia's ambassador to Ukraine, telling CBN News that in his mind, Vladimir Putin is at war against freedom in Ukraine and along Russia's borders.
He's afraid of freedom. He really thinks that freedom can be dangerous. And his end goal definitely is to turn Ukraine's path, to take the country piece by piece.
As Moscow continues its onslaught, there are fears the Baltics could be Putin's next military target.
It's foolish to believe that you can talk open discussions on a table with these kind of terrorists.
All 3 countries are part of NATO and the European Union, yet there's unease here in Tallinn, Estonia, that they, like the others, are unprepared to go toe-to-toe with Russia. Estonia's prime minister warning recently that her country's historic capital would be wiped off the map if Russia attacked.
Otherwise, being such a tiny country without the support of other countries, that wouldn't last long.
Despite their small sizes, Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania have helped Ukraine since Russia's war started.
Estonia's contribution to the war in Ukraine has been rather significant, given just how tiny this Baltic nation is. It's only about 1.3 million in population. According to the latest numbers from the Ministry of Defense, they've given roughly about $220 to $240 million in humanitarian as well as military assistance, including the highly effective anti-tank Javelin missiles.
The 30 members of NATO meeting in Madrid this week, promising to bolster the defense of the Baltics.
We will strengthen our forward defenses. We will enhance our battle groups in the eastern part of the alliance up to brigade levels.
NATO's Secretary General adding that the military alliance will dramatically increase the size of its rapid reaction force from 40,000 to 300,000 troops, all placed on high alert following Russia's invasion.
This constitutes the biggest overhaul of our collective defense and deterrence since the Cold War.
Still, anxiety grows by the day in towns like Krybarta, near Lithuania's border with Russia, as residents see more images of Russia's atrocities in Ukraine.
I feel angry because the war has all people here in Lithuania. It's normal thinking what's happening in Ukraine right now, so just thinking always, we remember always about it.
While French troops recently conducted a military exercise in Estonia, U.S. forces have also been beefing up presence on the continent. There are 100,000 American troops in Europe today, up from 65,000 in mid-February, just before Russia invaded Ukraine.
Putin wanted to weaken the rules-based international order, but instead he galvanized the world by his actions.
But now the question is whether this will be enough to stop Putin from venturing beyond Ukraine's borders. George Thomas, CBN News, Tallinn, Estonia.
Well, his announced dream has always been a greater Russia, and he somehow thinks that he's following in the footsteps of the great leaders of Russia, trying to reestablish Russian hegemony over Eastern Europe, and more than hegemony, outright annexation. So that's his goal in Ukraine, that there is no separation. They've even said Ukraine doesn't really exist. It's really part of Russia. And the same would apply to these Baltic states. If you've ever had a chance to go to Tallinn, Estonia, it's absolutely beautiful. People are wonderful. They do not want to be occupied by Russia again. And should they be afraid? Absolutely. If Finland is saying we need to join NATO, that you can pretty much be assured that all the Baltic states want to too. The problem would be, would NATO accept them, or would they say, well, we can't provoke Russia anymore if we allow them into NATO? Would that then automatically trigger a war? So this is a very dangerous situation. The war in Ukraine could spread, and this thing could turn into World War III. At this week's summit in Spain, President Biden pledged to increase the U.S. military presence in Europe. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
That is right, Gordon. President Joe Biden issuing a warning to Russia at the NATO summit in Madrid, saying the military alliance is ready to defend every inch of NATO territory.
The moment where Putin has shattered peace in Europe and attacked the very tenets of rule-based order, the United States and our allies are going to step up. We're stepping up.
The president also announced the United States will establish a military headquarters in Poland and send 2 more U.S. Navy destroyers to Spain, as well as 2 more F-35 squadrons to the United Kingdom. The move comes as NATO formally invited Finland and Sweden to join the alliance after Turkey dropped its objections. Well, turning now to the crisis on America's southern border, there are new details about the horrifying conditions inside that packed truck with immigrants in Texas. At least 53 people have now died. The tragedy highlighting the dangers of crossing the border illegally. Still, record numbers of immigrants continue to take the risk. CBN's Tara Mergener reports.
Last month saw more than 239,000 illegal border crossings, the highest numbers ever recorded. As investigators learn more about this recent deadly case, the Border Patrol is putting out a dire warning about the dangers of trying to come here illegally.
With the rising temperatures of South Texas, this is a guaranteed death sentence. It's not worth it. Do not place your life or the lives of your loved ones in the hands of these criminals.
In San Antonio, a vigil mourning the lives of migrants found dead this week.
I'm so fed up. I'm so tired. I came here when I was 14 years old in an 18-wheeler as well, and I passed out from the heat. I was lucky that I woke up.
Authorities say traffickers stuffed more than 60 migrants into the back of this abandoned tractor trailer with no air conditioning.
God knows how long they were there for.
Most of the men, women, and children already dead by the time help arrived.
The floor of the trailer was covered with dead bodies.
The survivors remain in critical condition.
They were all with tubes. They couldn't talk at all.
The truck's registration leading investigators to a home in San Antonio. 3 men are in custody, 2 of them from Mexico living in the U.S. illegally.
You got a rescue beacon activation on the Silver Tanks Road.
Border Patrol has 47 rescue beacons placed in high-traffic areas throughout the Rio Grande Valley. They help agents find migrants in distress at a faster rate, even as the surge increasingly overwhelms agents.
50 dead migrants in the back of a trailer. These people are heartbroken, our law enforcement personnel, because this is the kind of thing they can stop if they're not distracted, because they're having to process all of these people because Biden refuses to enforce the law.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott also blames President Biden's border policies.
All he's done since he's been president is employ open border policies. That means basically ceding the border to the cartels to engage in activity just like this.
Most of the victims in the truck were men from Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras. Before Monday, the worst smuggling-related mass fatality in recent Texas history was in 2003, when 19 people died after being trapped in an unrefrigerated dairy truck for hundreds of miles. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Tara. Well, the Supreme Court is expected to issue a ruling on a major immigration policy today. Remain in Mexico, a Trump administration rule, allowed asylum seekers to be deported while they waited for their cases to be heard. 4 months after the policy was put in place, apprehensions at the border declined more than 60%. President Biden sought to lift Remain in Mexico when he took office, but the state of Texas sued to block the move. Also at the Supreme Court today, a changing of the guard. Justice Stephen Breyer officially steps down at noon after 27 years of serving. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, the court's first African-American woman, will then be sworn in. Well, finally today, remembering an American hero. Herschel Woody Williams was the last surviving Medal of Honor winner from World War II. He died yesterday at the age of 98.
As a Marine corporal on Iwo Jima, Woody led his battalion's assault, taking out 7 enemy pillboxes over 4 hours. He faced enemy gunfire and direct attacks, going back for more flamethrowers as he ran low on fuel. That same day, Woody saw Old Glory waving over Mount Suribachi, the iconic photo that made headlines around the world. In 1945, President Harry Truman awarded Woody the Medal of Honor for his actions that day. Not only did Woody kill several enemy soldiers, but 2 of his fellow Marines gave their own lives to save his. Like many veterans of war, he struggled to adjust after returning home. On Easter Sunday, 1962, Woody went to church with his wife and 2 girls and heard the pastor describe Christ's suffering on the cross.
And that Christ had sacrificed his life just for us. Well, that hit home with these 2 Marines. Here are 2 individuals who didn't have to give their life, but they did, protecting me. And it really got me. It really got me. And for the first time, I realized that there are sacrifices made for us.
Woody went to the altar that day and prayed. He served the Lord the rest of his life and taught Sunday school at his church for 44 years.
Woody gave a full account of the Battle of Iwo Jima and shared his testimony of coming to faith in Christ with the 700 Club. You can watch that story on our website, cbnnews.com. And Gordon, what an amazing and inspiring life and a testament to the greatest generation.
And what a great and inspiring hero. Here he is. He took out 7 pillboxes, and let me give you the details here. In a space of 4 hours, he refueled 4 times in order to get enough fuel for his flamethrower to take them out. Those 7 pillboxes, he had to get within 20 yards of the pillbox in order to do that. Now imagine having machine gun fire bearing down on you, and you've got to walk through it to get close enough. You've got to get within 20 yards in order to be effective at it. And you don't just do it once, you do it 7 times. And when you run out of fuel, you're continually going back and getting fuel. The bullets were literally bouncing off his equipment. And he stood up to all of that to plow away so the Marines could get off the beach. Those 7 pillboxes stood in their way, and he took them out. It is the greatest generation. If you think he's some kind of, larger-than-life guy, here's another piece of information. He barely met the requirements for the Marines. He was only 5'6". He only weighed 135 pounds. What an incredible hero. What an incredible life. And yes, indeed, the greatest generation.